I'll start before Hay starts. I just want to say two things that are happening. One next week and another one in October. What you're seeing there is our passes training course. October 19th and 26th. So I invite everyone. Curso de passes, so the healing hands. If you want to join us, it will be 2 parts. We're looking for volunteers. As you know, our Sunday service, our talks after that, it's part of our operations and our program to have passes. So having those volunteers is key for us. So I encourage everyone that is interested to join us in October. And the more...
Can I ask something about that?
Yes, absolutely.
Are they going to be in Portuguese again this year?
We can do English. If we have English speakers, we'll do English. Okay. If we only have Portuguese speakers, then we do Portuguese. But if you would like to join, more than welcome, and we can do English.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you.
But don't feel like, I'm not going to join, because just please do it.
No, because last year I believe they were specifically marketed as being in
Portuguese. Yeah.
So I was just curious if this year was going to be similar.
We can do it in English.
Okay.
Yeah. And next week, Sunday, Marcio from TSS, Toronto Spiritist Center, in Toronto, is coming. He's visiting Calgary. He's doing kind of a tour here, I think, in the US about the Fraternity Without Borders. And he will come here on Sunday to do a talk about a bond of love and fraternity, united all humans, the strongest help the weakest. And I think it will be a fun and interesting, not only talk about Spiritism and fraternity, but also if you want to know more about this project. Encourage everyone for coming, joining us next week. Thank you.
Goes well with the name of our Spiritist Center.
Yeah.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. And we are gonna get started because we got lots to cover. So I'm gonna read another text from The Way, the Truth, and the Life. It's text 166 called Permanent Possessions. And it's based on a verse from the book, from the Gospel of John, when Jesus says, "I have come so that they may have life, and have it abundantly." Eu vim para que tenhas vida e vida em abundância. So John chapter 10 verse 10. And Emmanuel says, If having peace does not consist in an abundance of earthly possessions, it does depend on the abundance of permanent qualities the soul has. Therefore, the Divine Master came to us so that we may have an abundant life, replete with light, love, and eternity. For our own sake, we should never neglect the lasting gifts to be amassed in our spirit. In the pursuit of outward pleasures, we will never find the enlightenment we need. Springtime is a wonderful season, but winter follows it. The youthfulness of the body is a phase of many pleasures, but old age will soon arrive. The most harmonious and healthy physical body will experience infirmity and death someday. Every manifestation of existence on earth is a process of an ongoing transformation. It's critical to build our inner castle, from where we can raise our sentiments to the highest areas of life. Jesus has filled us with his sublime presence, not so that we can have ephemeral possessions, but so that we may possess imperishable riches. Not so that we can surround ourselves with outward advantages, but so that we may concentrate on lasting acquisitions. Let us be bearers of the immortal life. Christ did not visit us as a giver of ordinary benefits. He came in order to connect the lamp of our hearts to the power plant of God's love, transforming us into lights that never go out. Let's close our eyes. Take a deep breath. Dear Father, dear Master Jesus, dear spiritual mentors and guardian angels, we thank you for one more day incarnated, for one more day on earth, with so many possibilities for learning, for growing, with so many moral decisions that will test our discernment, that will test how virtuous we are. We thank you for your providence that provides us with all the means we need to fulfill our missions, individually and collectively. But we also ask for enlightenment, we ask for protection, and we ask for strength so that we may face the hard moments in life. We ask for strength so that we can overcome difficulties that sometimes may seem impossible to overcome. May we always find that our guardian angels are guiding us down the right path, that our spiritual friends are helping us to stay on the good path. And we hope that after leaving here today, in this fraternal gathering we have with friends, that we may leave a little bit wiser than we came in, a little bit more knowledgeable, and that this knowledge may also reach our hearts and our hands and turn into actions and kind words to all of our friends out there who are having a hard time and may think of ending their own life. May we have a friendly word, a friendly hug, a kind gesture that might help them change their minds. So be it. All right, so here we go again. So a 5-minute review. For all the people in the back, I showered. Okay, so death is not an end. So birth is not a beginning, death is not an end. Because we've been here before and we'll come back, hopefully to earth. So I listed quite a few scientists who are not spiritists, and you can look up all of their research. It's past life regression therapy, near-death experiences. There's all kinds of different things, and these are just a few. There's way more. So it's science getting closer to what we already know. So suicidal tendency is caused by the absence of meaning in life that comes from the rebellion and negativity, which result is much suffering. Which result in much suffering. The rebellion reaches a moment when it's so intense that the person wishes for death. They wish for self-annihilation. I did it. Okay, so we also talked about this. This is from the book Suicide False Solution by Alírio de Cerqueira Filho. And we saw some numbers. So this is from 2019. So an estimated 703,000 people die by suicide worldwide each year. And like looking at statistics from previous years, of course it goes up every year, unfortunately. So over 1 in every 20 deaths in 2019 were the result of suicide. The global suicide rate is over twice as high among men than women, and as we're going to see in Canada, it's 3 times. The reason being because men use more violent methods. Over half, so over 58% of all deaths by suicide occur before the age of 50. Suicide occurs across all regions in the world. However, over 3/4, 77% of global suicides in 2019 occurred in low and middle income countries. An individual suffering with depression is 20 times more likely to die by suicide than someone without the disorder. So far, so good?
Yes.
Not everybody was here last week, but... So, numbers in Canada. 12 people die by suicide each day, and again, these numbers are from 2019. 4,500 deaths by suicide every year, and in Canada, 3 times higher among men compared to women, and again, it's because women try way more. Way more. I think it's like 4 women for every 1 man, but men use more violent methods, so they end up...
The outcome is...
yes. The outcome
they,
is...
They can be saved easier.
Yeah, women can be saved easier because they usually do like overdose of medication and that kind of stuff. So many times, most times, it's still possible to save them. Not without consequences, but they can still revive. But for men, because they use more violent methods, they end up dying more. So suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death among youth between 15 and 35. And death rates by every 100,000 people. So blue is female and brown is male. And as you can see, unfortunately, brown is way higher, except for 10 to 19. And hospitalization rates associated with self-inflicted injuries per 100,000. As you can see, blue is higher. So like I said, women try more, but men die more, unfortunately.
And decrease by time.
Pardon me?
And decrease by time.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
It shows that the pressure is building up, because people who is still young doesn't mean they're gonna try, and it's gonna get higher as the time passes. You know, it's not like you try more when you're young. It's that the younger generations are receiving so much pressure that they're exploding. When they're getting older, not necessarily you get down. When our day goes,
the numbers are still pretty consistent. That's why we say like the rate for men.
Yeah,
it's not just the pressure of the being young and the pressure for the generation.
Seems like it's easier to try when you are young, but I don't think it's exactly that. I think that internet and so much information, this younger generation are more fragile, and when they are getting older, we'll observe if it's still will be higher. Like in 10 years, the people who is in this group will change groups, and then we'll see if you get down, like appear there, or if you...
I understand what you mean. Generationally speaking.
Are these people that go the MAID approach, do they get included in these?
No.
Okay, so these
MAID is 100% separated, because MAID is 100%, like there's no ifs, because with direct suicide, There are ifs, there are investigations. Sometimes something that looks like a suicide could be a murder, so there's got to be investigation. Something that looks like an accident could be a suicide. So that's why the numbers are always so late. With MAID, because they are a legal thing, there's a legal process for MAID, you can't just do it because you want, the numbers are very precise.
What is that mean?
They,
Medical assistance in dying.
Okay.
do they consider them though to be suicides as they do these? Okay,
No.
that's, they don't, like in terms of the statistics, they don't
Yeah,
consider it.
completely separate things. Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank
they're
you.
not even.
That's the reason why, for example, these numbers are 2019, but for MAID we have numbers for 2022 already.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You have to add both to have the real picture.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing with MAID is that the numbers are very precise.
Okay.
Like that here, there are accidents that could be suicide, but they're not counted on the numbers. But with MAID, there's no ifs or buts.
Yeah.
All right. So warning signs. People thinking about suicide typically exhibit warning signs. Any significant change in behavior may be a warning sign. Warning signs in adults or children can look like. There are so many. These are just some of them. Change in usual behavior. For example, neglecting personal interests or previously enjoyed activities, something that a person used to be passionate about, now they don't care about anymore. Dreaming or worrying about death. Increasing problems at school or problems occurring for the first time or for adults at work or even social life. Expressing or demonstrating a general dissatisfaction or disinterest in all activities. So nothing brings you joy anymore. Mainly for a kid, that's a huge warning sign because kids don't have the demands that we have. They are usually happier, easier than we are. So if a kid has no interest in absolutely anything, we need to really pay attention. So multiple symptoms of depression, experiencing long-term sadness and or frequent crying. One thing that is very important to say, when we talk about depression, a lot of times it can be vitamin deficiency that makes you lethargic, no energy, and something like that. A person with depression is not complaining that they're tired, they're complaining that they're living. Okay? So the sadness and frequent crying are more of a sign than simply tiredness and exhaustion. Tiredness and exhaustion could be just a sign of vitamin deficiency. So that's why a whole lot of unfortunately nowadays, most doctors will just prescribe you antidepressants like right away. But a good doctor would actually do blood work, check if you are vitamin deficient and supplement vitamins before they do anything else to see if that excessive exhaustion is lack of vitamins. But sadness and frequent crying are more of a symptom of depression than extreme tiredness. Developing difficulties concentrating in school for kids or at work or regular life activities for adults. Losing interest in previously enjoyed activities or lacking energy to participate. So here's where the lacking energy part comes in. It could be just vitamin deficiency. Having insomnia or frequent nightmares. Routinely not answering questions or long delays in answering. Complaining of physical aches and pains not linked to verified illness. Experiencing anxiety and multiple fears or phobias. Okay? Conversations for kids and youth. Some conversations that we should, like, you know, the spidey senses should tingle. I'm not very happy most of the time. I think about dying. I think mom or dad left because of me. It would be better if I wasn't here. I hate my life, I want to go away. So, and there are several others, like I'm useless, I don't know what I'm doing here, I have no purpose in life. All of these things, we need to start paying attention. And Canada has a lot of resources. The main one for suicide, the main one is Center for Suicide Prevention. And we can see advertising on trains, buses, everywhere. So types of suicide. Intentional suicide, according to Webster Dictionary, is the action or an occasion of taking one's own life voluntarily and intentionally. And unintentional or indirect suicide occurs when the actions or behaviors of a person indirectly causes their death. So for intentional suicide, from the dictionary, we are going to call conscious, like meaning doing it voluntarily, on purpose. I'm conscious, I'm aware, I know what I'm doing. I mean, we think we know, we don't really know, but it's a decision that we make. And unintentional, we're going to call unconscious suicide. So we're going to talk about both kinds. Last week we stopped at the conscious. We saw like the direct and we saw euthanasia. So we're going to go through them quickly, and then we're going to start with the indirect suicide. That's where we stopped last week. So direct or conscious suicide, when you made the decision, it's voluntary. We think we know what we're doing. So numbers again, about 4,500 people each year, average of 12 people a day, average 200 attempts. So for the 12 people that died, there were 200 attempts.
And the number in Canada.
In Canada, this is just Canada. And 7 to 10 people profoundly affected by the person who tries and by the person who actually commits the suicide. So family, friends are profoundly affected. Everybody is left asking themselves why. 24% of deaths among 15 to 24 years old. That's a very high number. Very high. Okay, then euthanasia. So good, thanatos death, so good death, so the painless killing of a patient suffering from an incurable and painful disease or in an irreversible coma. This is original. Originally, that's what it was supposed to be. But nowadays, it's what we call, what we're talking about, MAID, medical assistance in dying. Nowadays, a lot of people who are just tired of living have been applying for it. It's a process. It's a legal process. You have to be approved. You can't just decide and do it. But nowadays, the number of people who are doing it because they're materialistic, they don't believe in the survival of the soul after death. So in their minds, once you die, everything ends. What's the point of living? So a lot of these people have been applying to be approved for MAID as well. So there's active with the use of lethal substances, and there's passive, withholding treatment to continue or prolong life. One thing that is very important to say here, I was going to say it after, but I think here is a good point to say, and Gleso even asked me to talk about it. There's something else called orthothanasia. So has everybody ever heard? Orthothanasia. Ortho, from orthopedics, orthodontist.
Ortho-euthanasia, dystanásia e euthanasia.
Yeah.
We
So
have those three different.
yeah, I'm not gonna talk about the euthanasia because we will be here for days.
Yeah.
But ortho means correct, straight. So orthodontist, to correct your teeth. Orthopedics corrects your bones. So orthothanasia would be a correct death. Very good question. What does it mean? Something that I don't think we have in Brazil, but here in Canada, they have something called hospice. Has everybody ever heard of a hospice? So when you have an incurable, irreversible disease, and you have done everything you possibly could. You went through treatment. You did everything you possibly can, but it's terminal. There's nothing you can do about it. Instead of the euthanasia that abbreviates your life, you go to a place to die with dignity. So it is correct death. So you go to a place where doctors, nurses will be assisting you, controlling the pain and all of that. That is absolutely perfect. Spiritually speaking, it is 100% according to divine laws, because it's a matter of dignity. You go to a place, you can either go back home and die at home, or to a place like a hospice where you have medical help to control pain. And I have a friend who actually died in a hospice. She was there for 3 months with terminal cancer, and she had other people she could have social interactions with that she would not have been able to if she had been at home or at the hospital. So she felt that for her, it was the most dignifying way of waiting for the inevitable.
I thought this was already euthanasia.
No, because you're not abbreviating your life. Oh, the passive one is, for example, you are diagnosed with something incurable. You don't even try. You refuse all treatments. You just want to die. You want to go faster. You refuse treatment. You haven't tried to help yourself in any way, shape, or form.
Like I don't
That's
wanna
the
go
passive
through
one.
chemotherapy,
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna stop even trying. Kind of.
Yeah.
It's very generic to say, right? But
Yes.
it's mostly like you abbreviate. You're taking
Yeah.
some action in ending the life not naturally.
Yes.
Was the one that you said euthanasia?
Or euthanasia.
Is this, for me, it was the same euthanasia, because euthanasia was created.
No,
for
because
someone
euthanasia, you've already done everything you can. You're waiting for death. In Brazil, people do that at home. Like they leave the hospital. When there's nothing else to do, they leave the hospital and they go home to be with their loved ones and wait for the inevitable. In Canada, they have hospices where, in Brazil, they have like the home care. Here they have home care, or you can go to a hospice where there will be other people in a similar situation and you're waiting for the inevitable, but somebody's helping you control your pain, your symptoms, so it eases your passage.
What
The
about
thing I want to say is, I thought the euthanasia is the same with the euthanasia. For me, the definition of euthanasia
By
was
the
that,
definition.
Yeah.
I guess the way we.
because euthanasia you have to ask for the person who will
Yeah.
die or not.
Yes. Yeah.
So I thought that this euthanasia is already euthanasia.
No, different, very different. Euthanasia, 100% according to divine laws. Euthanasia, no.
What about the aspect though of hospice care where they sometimes withdraw vital fluids towards the end? Is that still considered appropriate spiritually by divine law?
Every case is a different case, Attila. It depends. It's the whole idea of attenuating and aggravating circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
If sometimes withdrawing the vital fluids would be better for the person. So it will be case to case. It will really depend on individual cases. As long as you don't refuse treatment or like if you have already done everything you possibly could, and let's say that's hurting you like heck, why not?
I agree with you actually.
Yeah.
I'm just saying from a spiritist, spiritual law perspective, the withdrawal of fluids, my understanding, was to hasten the expiration of the body.
If that's the reason, it depends on the reason.
Yeah.
So what's the reason?
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, anything that we do from a spiritist law perspective that speeds up the process of our body expiring is breaking divine law.
Correct.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
And we
Correct.
need to be very careful.
It's
Very, very careful.
every circumstances.
of
That's what I
trying
said.
to establish an answer It's like for everything that is done here, that is the answer for spirit.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Every case is
Every
different.
case and every single immortal spirit will have their conscience and will know what they are doing. Even though they might think they might know, they might not know, but deep inside, they will know. So it's I strongly recommend that for us to be very aware when we're trying to look for simple answers.
Yep.
Did this? Spiritism says this.
Absolute rules. There are no.
Absolute
Yeah.
rules doesn't exist.
It doesn't apply.
Yeah, so I think it's an exercise for us because we want an answer. I want that. This happened. What the Spiritism says. It's not like this. The Spiritist book says that for everything there's attenuating circumstances and aggravating circumstances.
Everything.
So we
Not
need
just
to be very
suicide or euthanasia.
for everything.
For everything.
So we
There's
need to be very
like for
mindful.
every bad thing that we do, for every time you do something wrong to someone or you suffer something from someone, and you're like, where's God's justice? In every situation, there's attenuating circumstances and aggravating circumstances.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like, one rule, one size fits all. There's no one size fits all.
Is it because of our previous experiences?
Many times. Or our present ones too.
Yeah, there's several factors.
God
Several
mercy.
factors that might be accounted.
And God's mercy, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Salvation,
So that would then theoretically even apply to what we just talked about.
Yes.
Which is
Yeah.
potentially withdrawing fluids and with the intention of hastening it, depending on the circumstances of that particular spirit.
That is
Exactly.
one example amongst
Yeah.
millions of other
Yeah.
examples that
Infinite.
even without talking about suicide,
Yeah.
other things that we do in life,
Yep.
what is the purpose? What are we doing for?
Everything is about intention.
Yeah.
I have one slide that I recommend everybody takes a picture of recommended reading about suicide. And there is a section in the Spiritist book of questions. There's like a chapter specifically for questions about suicide. I recommend everybody reads it because every case is a different case. There's Allan Kardec even asked, what about a person who knows they put themselves in danger, knowing they might die, but it's to save someone else? Allan Kardec asks a lot of what if. So we don't have time for everything. I recommend everybody to go through all those questions in the Spirit's book because they clarify a lot of things. But every case is a different case, and there's always attenuating and aggravating circumstances for everything. It's not the black and white answer people wanted, but that's how it goes.
No.
Euthanasia in Canada. So in June of 2016, the Parliament passed legislation that allows eligible Canadians to seek medical assistance in dying, MAID. Who can administer varies by province. I think here in Alberta, no, I'm not going to go there because I don't know for sure. So it can be clinician-administered medical assistance in dying, also known as voluntary euthanasia, or self-administered medical assistance in dying, also known as assisted suicide. It cut there, but it's also known as assisted suicide. So in the clinician-administered, again, a material person who has no knowledge of spiritual life and anything like that is becoming a partner in crime. So it is a murder/suicide because somebody is applying that to you. So they are co-responsible.
That would be like morally though, like it would be murder.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
legally, no.
Exactly. Because the law of man is here. The law of God is here. We are slowly trying to catch up with the law of man. We have banned so many things that, simplest example, duels. Duels in the 19th century were legal. You could legally challenge somebody, kill them on the street, and nothing would happen to you because it was according to the law of duels. Men have already banned. Capital punishment. death penalty has already been abolished in most places, because we know there's a lot of injustice happening there, just like there was injustice, for example, in the Inquisition. Like, if I want to incriminate somebody, I can. So the law of man is catching up slowly to the divine laws, but we're not there yet. So legally, they're not a murder, but spiritually, it's not like first-degree murder, but they are co-responsible.
Maybe they are working.
They think so, but you don't have to. Like, I work on the maternity floor, and there are doctors who refuse to do abortions even though they're legal. The professional can choose not to.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of doctors refuse.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And I think that's, again, just an example of how we cannot have one rule for all, because if a spiritist doctor does that, you have different consequences, and a materialistic doctor doesn't have any spirituality or religion background. It's the same act, but the consequence for that spirit will be different, because
Exactly.
if I know better, the
You have more
consequences
responsibility.
are harsher. Yeah,
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
That's why sometimes ignorance is a blessing.
That's the sophism. It never is.
Yeah.
Because
It will catch up to you sometime.
the attenuating and aggravating circumstances are going to be different, but there will be consequences regardless.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to case by case.
Yes.
Even on the moral side. And even somebody who may have knowledge of Spiritism as to what those particular... I guess, for me, it's just, you read a passage last week from St. Louis that seemed to me to read very black and white. Like, it was made out to be, there is a line, and if you cross that line, then... And anything that shortens death is essentially crossing the line. So, and I may have misunderstood it, but that's what I understood. But,
No, you
so I
did
guess, okay, so what we're saying is that there's a lot more gray than what that passage might have
Yeah.
suggested.
I don't think there's.
I wouldn't call it gray. I would
Yeah.
call attenuating and aggravating.
It's
Because it's-
everyone
We'll always be
reflecting on that and knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
They will have a. I'm not saying that will be punished, but there is a consequence for.
There
doing
is
something
no
that goes
punishment.
against-
There's
yeah.
there's just
there's no just consequence.
there's just an effect
Yeah.
for the cause that we cause.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Which,
our actions have an effect, but we caused it.
which could be, to your point, on reflection, rather than just necessarily negative, it could be beneficial outcomes too.
It absolutely is. You do good, you get good. You
Yeah.
do bad, you get
Yeah.
bad. It's that black and white. Every case is a different case, but the rule is simple. So I double checked for everybody who thought it was cumulative. It's not. It's actual numbers. So 2022. From 1,000 in 2016, they approved the law after the second half of the year in 2016. So for 2017, it was almost 3 times more already, and it's just been ramping up. And in 2022, 13,241 deaths by maid. Euthanasia, assisted suicide.
I'm surprised that the lockdown didn't affect this graph, right?
Yeah. So this is only medical assistance in dying, only. Doesn't count the other types of suicides.
Oh.
So this is like people who were legally approved to shorten their lives. Again, by the law of man. So this is what Attila was saying that I read last week from St. Louis. And again, so this is in 1860 something. So there are no machines to keep people alive. So in 1860 something, when we talk euthanasia, we talk somebody who is already dying, who is already sick, but they want to shorten it because they're suffering. And then Kardec asks, a man is agonizing under cruel suffering. His state is known to be desperate. Would it be legal, to save him a few instants of anguish by hastening his end, by speeding up his death? St. Louis replies, Who has given you the right to prejudge God's purpose? Can he not conduct a person to the very brink of the grave and then withdraw them in order that they may awaken and recognize the need to change their ideas? So here, what Attila was saying about the black and white. Here, for example, nowadays we have so many machines and we have like blood work. We have so many ways of knowing if a person is absolutely terminal or not. But we're talking about a time where none of that existed. So at that time, how many people were buried alive because they had a gout episode and their heartbeat was just really, really low, but they were not actually dead? Nowadays, this would never happen. Well, in modern society.
Well, if you go to a hospital or something.
In modern society, like in a big city, this would never happen. The doctors have like enough equipment to know if that person is actually dead or not. So we're talking about a time where even that kind of thing happened. So what he's saying here is somebody at that time, as close to death as they might seem to be, could still recover. Not only that, even nowadays, we know it's famous when we talk about the relief before death. Some people who, right before they die, they become lucid again, and few hours or few days later, they die. That's also an instrument of divine mercy. That's an opportunity that person is having to have, to pass their life through their eyes in a movie and reevaluate where they went wrong, if they regret, what they would do differently. And in this text later, St. Louis says that could save that person a lot of suffering in the spiritual world. So when we hasten that person who could still have that final improvement before death, or that person that is, like I said, nowadays it won't happen that often, but at the time it did. Somebody who looked terminal got their health back. So if we hasten that death, we are taking away the opportunity for that person to have that final moment of clarity, final moment of lucidity. Does it make sense now? More sense?
Of becoming like more conscious
Yes.
about themselves
Yes.
and doing better in the next life, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah, like a
Yeah.
final, like last moment self-evaluation,
Yeah.
self-reflection.
Makes sense.
That could be very beneficial.
And the spirit is still, even if the person is in a coma or something, the spirit is still active in a sense. It's still
Yes.
learning.
Yes, near
And
experience,
maybe that it
that's...
still needs that kind of consciousness, like in the body to whatever it's needed
Yeah.
to, right?
Yeah, some of those scientists that were in that slide in the beginning have done like extensive study on near-death experiences, where there's one, that doctor is not here on that list, it's a different doctor. He had a patient, a lady, who was going through surgery, and she had a heart attack in the middle of the surgery. And after they were able to revive her, finish the surgery, after she recovered, she described everything. She described the operating room. She knew the names of the nurses, the hairstyle of all the nurses. She knew the names of all the doctors that were in the next operating room operating on someone else. She knew colors of clothes. She knew all of that. Isn't it interesting? She was blind by birth. So another proof that it's the soul that sees, not the physical eyes of the body.
Sorry, just out of curiosity. My mom had the same experience. She's not blind, but she even had like an afterlife experience when she was under surgery. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's these scientists who conduct these researches with patients who had that kind of experience that are trying to prove that there is a soul, that it's not just the physical body that dies and we're done. Okay.
Now we
Oh
start.
boy. Oh boy. Indirect or unconscious suicide. So Increased toxic substance use, alcohol or drugs. Feelings of helplessness or hopelessness, no sense of purpose in life, which sometimes leads to substance abuse, to numb our conscience, our feelings. Anxiety, agitation, uncontrollable anger. That can also eat away at our vital fluids. That can shorten our lives. But we're talking about extreme, excessive.
Yeah, not everyone who has
No,
some
not
anxiety
regular. Yeah, not regular. I'm
is
anxious
what that
about
can
my
lead
trip.
to,
Yeah,
right? And
no. We're talking
it
about
can lead to
extreme
physical
cases.
illnesses too that
Yes.
can cause.
Yeah. We're talking about extreme
I
cases.
don't understand, sorry.
It depletes your vital fluid. So, like extreme cases of anxiety, like to the point of paranoia. People who are paranoid, like as an actual mental disease, not illness, not like regular anxiety about a new job, about not your day to day, like a pathological case of somebody who is anxious to the point they're paranoid. They are eating away at their vital fluid. It's like they're accelerating. They're accelerated for everything.
So does that,
Sorry.
sorry, no, go ahead.
We will start.
No, I was gonna ask, so does that apply for like panic attacks, OCD?
Yeah, does
If
that-
it's extreme,
And so, like, because I understand they can be considered like extreme, otherwise they would not be considered like mental health.
some people
issues.
go through a few episodes and then they help themselves overcome it. Some people are not interested in overcoming it. Again, you see the attenuating and aggravating circumstance. When you make the decision to look for help, to,
Take medication.
if need be, why not?
Yeah.
See a therapist,
Whatever.
whatever.
Exactly.
Mm.
So you see the difference between the aggravating and attenuating. If you have it and you go look for help and you want to overcome it, attenuating. If you're not interested because your condition gets you attention from other people and you're comfortable having everybody else's attention, that's an aggravating circumstance.
But still, both of them would be considered like unconscious suicides.
Again, it depends for how long it helps. It depends on if you're looking for help or not. It depends on a whole lot of things, but it could be depending on how serious it is.
Because that could lead to your body deteriorating your body.
Yes.
Cause abuse of substance could
Mhm.
lead to illnesses.
Yep.
Like, and then let's say high blood pressure, whatever illness
Mhm.
in your body. And if it's not treated,
Yeah.
it's like any
Like
other
someone-
illness you're not treating. Like
Yeah.
if you're not treating something that is treatable, you're making a choice to not help yourself.
Mhm.
Like someone
If it's
that
something you can do, right?
like someone that is died by, I don't know in English, cirrhosis, right? Because
Cirrhosis, liver cirrhosis.
yeah, they drink a lot, right? So
Yeah.
it was, he was
Consequence.
sick and died, but actually wasn't direct suicide. Right?
Mhm.
Not everyone who has depression or anxiety is doing an unconscious suicide. It's just
Yeah.
what you do when you have
Mhm.
those
When you know you're
hardships in your life.
Yeah. Do you aggravate or do you attenuate?
Yeah.
So, unable to sleep or sleeping all of the time, feelings of being trapped, like there's no way out, withdrawal from friends, family, and society, acting reckless and engaging in risky activities. So, like base jumping. Can that be
Rock
considered
climbing
indirect
without
suicide?
equipment.
It can. Because you knew you were risking your life. You knew that an equipment failure would end up in your death.
But could that not be, like, I'm just curious how wide this definition could possibly get then. Because literally a window sweeper who does skyscrapers is not much different than the base
It is.
jumper.
It is. He's using all the safety equipment and he's there because he needs the money. He's not there he's not an adrenaline junkie who can't find meaning in life and needs to risk their lives to find some meaning or get some adrenaline so that they can feel it. For some people, adrenaline is traveling. For some people, adrenaline is risking their lives. If you risk your life, if you know there's a chance of death for pleasure. A person who is working is different. It's completely different. It's
But it's not.
their bread. They're winning their bread.
But
It's
they could do a
different.
different job if we're going to split hairs.
Exactly. It's the same thing when you said about euthanasia, people that work to do this submit euthanasia for other persons.
Yeah.
So it's about, you want to do this or not? It's about work, right?
Yeah.
I got, sorry, I just got one question. What about race car drivers? I know it's a completely separate like category. That's a job, but it's also a risky activity because car failure, right?
Aggravating, attenuating,
But it's-
aggravating,
That's the thing
attenuating.
though, because it's their job. Would that be considered indirect?
How many race car drivers do you know that are dirty poor? And they're racing because
God,
they
no.
absolutely need that money.
Yeah.
Do you think that's aggravating or attenuating? Window cleaners are usually not rich.
No, okay.
They usually don't choose that job.
I think
To
that
become
the word
rich.
that is highlighted, reckless, that's important
Yes.
to remember, because if you're working as a window cleaning here, they probably have all the equipment they need.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to, I don't know, like in a very poor country to do something, then I'm just doing it because I need the money, but I don't have the equipment. Like we can't, there's always these
Attenuating,
areas, but
aggravating.
again,
If
it's
here
the
in Canada,
survival of having bread to your family, or maybe risking your life, that every situation will be different.
yeah, it's the level of responsibility. So just as an example, let's get the window cleaners. I'm a window cleaner in Canada. I have all the safety equipment. I have everything available. It doesn't have to be window cleaner. Anybody. PPE. I have all the PPE available for me.
Okay.
And I choose not to use it.
Oh.
My responsibility is way there because I know there's the risk of dying and I'm still refusing to use because it's uncomfortable.
No.
So that's reckless.
And that's a fair point. So I see where you're coming from. If I'm actually curious, my question initially was in regards to the substance use part of it.
Mhm.
So we talked about cirrhosis of the liver. That's a pretty extreme. Although in today's world, with the benefit of science, we now know any consumption of alcohol is essentially poisoning your liver. And your liver is working as hard as it possibly can to get it out of your system. And anybody with that knowledge knows the only reason they're getting drunk is because they're better at drinking than your liver is at getting it out of your system, and at some point it gets in your bloodstream. So it's literally like this constant battle with the body.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, as far as I guess, because I take this to be coming from, doctrinal sense of how things are. In that context, is that considered unconscious suicide?
Yes.
If it's chronic like that?
Yes.
Then by that definition, would not food, which is arguably the most addictive substance
Yes.
on the face of this planet, everybody that is dying from heart disease, from diabetes, from all of these things that knows what behaviors are getting them there, are in some effect dying as a result of an unconscious suicide?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And you can see that very clearly in the beginning of the book Our Home,
Okay.
where André Luiz stays in the Umbral for 8 years.
Oh, yeah.
And when he's finally rescued, somebody says, oh, it's so unfortunate that he died by indirect suicide. And he immediately goes like, I didn't commit suicide, are you crazy? And then they say, oh, really? What about the food abuse? What about the alcohol abuse? All of those were shortening your life, so they are indirect suicide. Yes, it's right there in the beginning of Our Home, Nosso Lar.
No, that's I appreciate you clarifying. It
Yeah.
just seems like when you think about it,
Yeah,
it
no,
takes the
it's-
bar
it's-
and it takes
no.
it really high.
Yep,
Yes.
it does.
Brings more
Can I
responsibility.
make a comment? It's funny because I come to about suicide. Okay, I watch so many things about it. I don't think I need anything to study it, but I'm going. I'm going. And then we got here to see lots of things that we do wrong. That it's indirect suicide. It's not on purpose, but
Yeah.
I don't eat as well. I don't sleep well. I don't. And you keep like, oh, I actually really need it. I need to pay attention to that things.
Let's not go into the extreme anxiety one. Information is important. It's important that we understand food, like any kind of abuse we commit to our own bodies, in a way, is indirect suicide. But again, we're talking about more extreme cases. Again, aggravating, attenuating. Like, what packaged food can you buy without chemicals, without any kind of additives or anything like that that is harmful for your body? So all of these things are taken into consideration. There isn't like a court, a jury, a tribunal. There isn't somebody who's going to be there with a gavel and go like, bang!
You ate mac and cheese.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
So
So,
much donuts.
yeah, so everybody, let's breathe easy.
I always had like bronchitis.
Yeah.
Bronchitis asthma when I was really small kid and growing up.
Yeah.
So I know that I have smoked a lot in previous lives.
Yeah, like you see some of these things. So, all right. So indirect or unconscious suicide is usually related to an attempt to forget or run away. When we say forget, we're talking about like things from past lives that are recorded somewhere in our conscience, in our core spirit. So that gives us that, you know, like a strange fear of something, even if it's a disease. Some people commit suicide because they were diagnosed with a disease. I didn't know, but somebody mentioned that Robin Williams committed suicide after he found out he had, what was it? Schizophrenia? No.
Some kind of dementia.
Yeah, some kind of dementia.
One of the-
It was an early onset of dementia. And he killed himself because he was afraid to lose his personality. He was afraid to go through the stages of the illness. So this fear that takes you to commit suicide, it's usually a fear that you have for going through something that is connected. It's an effect of a cause from a previous life. Make sense? Worse than killing oneself in an act of desperation because you had time to reflect. So indirect suicide. When you kill yourself in a fit of rage, passionate situation, like Gleison was mentioning that a long time ago there was some census made in Brazil, and that like the reason for most suicides was like love life. You know, you get dumped, you kill yourself. So,
This is conscious, no?
yes, pardon me?
It's not unconscious.
No, that's conscious. That's what it's saying. Indirect is worse. Because when you do something in a state of desperation, it's less aggravating than when you do it slowly. Then you know what you're doing. You have time. You know you're drinking yourself to death. You know you're smoking yourself to death. So you have a whole, you know, all those people's like, oh, cigarettes are gonna kill you. Oh, I'm gonna die anyway. So yeah, that's way worse because during your whole life you knew you were killing yourself. You knew you were shortening your lifespan.
Again, it has to do.
You have
with
more
the knowledge
responsibility.
you have.
You have more responsibility. So it kills the body, our blessed gift for evolving slowly in search for pleasure at any cost. It's usually related to some kind of pleasure. Sex addicts. Sex addicts are committing indirect suicide because they deplete their vital fluid.
Sorry, what does deplete?
Fluido vital, vital fluid.
Deplete.
Deplete,
Take away. Yeah.
take away, yeah, thanks. Now I don't know how to speak Portuguese. A fleeting moment of pleasure versus centuries for the spirit to rehabilitate themselves, body and mind. And it cut again. It just says it's not worth it. Sometimes it takes the spirit 2, 3, or more centuries to recover from a death by drug addiction, sex addiction, sometimes more than 3 centuries, several reincarnations.
Jesus.
Yes. So, vices and addictions. So, the number of overdose deaths from fentanyl and Other cocaine-related stimulants or methamphetamine increased more than 50-fold from 2010 to 2021 in Canada and the US. So that's considered reckless behavior because you know you could have an overdose. Between January and March of 2024, this year, an average of 21 people died from opioids use every day in Canada, the first 3 months of this year. Each day, 100 plus Canadians die of a smoking-related illness. And here, these numbers also considered secondhand smokers. People who never smoked a cigarette, but end up with heart problems and lung cancer or esophagus cancer from breathing their parents' or friends' cigarettes. Okay, are people who fall victim, so 952 Spirit's book question. Are people who fall victim to excessive indulgence in passions that they know will hasten their death, but to which they are uncontrollably addicted to, committing suicide? So all the excesses and any kind of pleasure, food, drinks, sex. This is a moral suicide. Do you not see that in this case, such persons are even guiltier or more responsible? They are guilty of lacking resolve, of the sin of depravity and neglecting God. So, again, we had time to think. We had time to look for help. If it's an addiction, like, addiction is not something that you're like, oh, okay, I'll drop it. No, we need help. And there is help available. But did we look for help? So, aggravating, attenuating. Abortion. Considered the worst kind of suicide. Sex addiction is the second worst kind. The worst kind of indirect suicide is abortion.
But abortion wouldn't be murder instead of suicide, because suicide is the own person.
2 crimes. 1 murder and 1 suicide. Why? The woman's body is prepared to have children. And again, we have our reincarnation plan. So our bodies have the right amount of vital fluid, women, have the right amount of vital fluid for the children we're supposed to have. It's all planned. When a woman aborts a child, she's decreasing her vital fluid as well. Research has already shown that even in the case of an abortion, the woman still carried the baby cells in her body for the rest of her life, aborted or not. For a child, for both a child who is born or a child who is aborted, the woman will carry cells from that baby for the rest of her life.
Does that apply for spontaneous abortion?
No. Miscarriages are completely different. Miscarriages happen for so many different reasons. We're talking about like a voluntary abortion, like going to a clinic and having that baby removed.
What about a morning pill, for example?
Morning pill is not an abortive. Morning pill doesn't kill a baby. If conception has already happened, morning pill will do nothing.
It's 12:07. I think this topic is very sensitive.
I think we'll come back for part 3.
Yeah. So I encourage you, if you want to talk more about it.
Maybe just like an open.
Yeah. If you want to talk more about it, we can mostly help with in light of the Spiritist doctrine.
Yes.
And I just want to leave one message with all this talk. It's super important of us to exercise of not judgment.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is a struggle for someone that committed a mistake. So it's very important for us to be self-aware and be aware of our judgment. Right?
Yes.
We have self-judgment as well, and we have several examples of people that committed, that took that route, and were blessed. and did all the work to recover from that. Ivone Pereira do Amaral, Judas. Those are two great examples that took that route, and because of the mercy of God, were able to recover and were able to continue with their progress. This is it's a difficult topic, important to talk, but especially for us receiving that message, we might have examples. We might have people. I have several examples in my close circle that took that route. So it's important as we, and especially when we start to, what about this, what about that? And trying to be exact and have a formula about that. But before of everything, compassion, love for ourselves and for our neighbors that decided to, and we know it's not the right thing to do, it's a mistake.
It's a mistake.
But with all the mistakes that we have the possibilities, the endless possibilities to correct that.
No mistake is unforgivable. There's no such thing
Yeah.
in God's mercy. Something else, we will have to come back because I haven't even gotten to the consolation part.
Three more Sundays.
Yeah, but everything that Luis said, and something else, prayer. Prayer for those who have made the mistake, or those who are thinking about it. Prayer is key. Prayer helps. Prayer actually sometimes, we're going to talk more about this, prayer sometimes helps those spirits to be rescued. And after the rescue, the energy of our prayers, of the energy especially of incarnated people, will help suicides immensely. Immensely. So our prayers are literally medicine for them.
And even the divine mercy, we know Mary of Nazareth, mother of Jesus, has a whole team, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And there's a whole space created to support and help
Yes,
those.
several. There's several
that created
across
it.
the planet.
She's dedicated with the love of a mom, she is dedicated to support and help those that tried Israel.
That's exactly what Jesus said when Jesus asked Mary to be responsible for all the suicides on the planet. He said that only the love of a mother could nurture those souls. So we're going to talk about that too. We're going to talk about the Legion of Mary and how they help the suicides and all of that. So all the what ifs are important. We can always talk about it, but what we need to know is that a mistake? No mistake is unforgivable. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and no mistake is unforgivable. The word sin in Aramaic comes from target. So committing a sin is actually just missing the target. The target is to evolve. The target is to go through the consequences of what we did in a previous life. And sometimes we feel like we can't, and we end up making the mistake of shortening our lives. We just missed the target. We'll have an opportunity to get the target. We'll get an opportunity to get it right. Everybody will. So I just want, if you guys want to, in the meantime, until we talk about it again, I will just leave the recommended reading with you. If anybody wants to, I just can't find it here now. If anybody in the meantime wants to take a look at some stuff. So here is the list I recommend. So Spirit's book. Suicide False Solution. The video classes, if you put it on YouTube, you can have auto-generated English subtitles. Okay? They are not perfect, but from what it was, I tested it, and I think I would say about 80%, which is not bad at all. So auto-generated English subtitles for this. It's 16 classes. It's over 14 hours. So There's a lot.
Memoirs of a Suicide, they
1.5.
has English.
Yeah, Memoirs of a Suicide we have in English as well. It's not an easy read by any means. A lot of people start and can't finish. And one of the possible reasons is exactly because it kind of brings back that instinctive thing that we've done it before, we don't want to see it again. So that's, yeah, so that it triggers something from past experiences. It's not an easy read, but it's absolutely worth it. But if you can't read, if you watch Suicide Falls Solution, the video classes, they have podcasts. It's on the thing where we listen to music. Thank you. It's on Spotify. You can find it on many different platforms. Highly recommend. It's very enlightening because there's all the important thing we need to know, but the most important thing is no judgment, kindness, love. We might have made that mistake too. So let's help those who have already made the mistake, those who haven't, and let us not fall into that pit.
And even, as I said, prayer, also for the people we see, they're going through that route and haven't committed the final act, let's say that.
Yeah, going to them
ourselves
and listing all the things we did here is not a good idea. The prayer is much better.
Yeah.
It's 12:15. We need to. Thank you very much, and we'll definitely continue this. So let's close our eyes. Try to calm our hearts. Dear Master Jesus, we thank you for the opportunity to be here, for the opportunity to have these important conversations, to learn this important information. And we hope that our prayers will get to those in need. We hope that one day we're going to live in a world where everybody understands the importance of our physical body in our path to evolution. That everybody will practice discernment, or everybody will ask for help. May we all free our hearts from judgment and fill our hearts with kindness, with love, with understanding for our brothers and sisters. May we all have time to reflect upon the knowledge we gained and make good decisions and use our discernment for our betterment, for our improvement. May we have a productive and blessed week. So be it. Sim.